Well, hey there, you guys. Welcome back to another week at the podcast. I am super excited to be with you talking about how to increase your capacity to receive. So, if you are currently in a place where you feel like you are not satisfied with the results that you are getting, you are most likely blocking the flow of abundance and success into your life without even realizing it. So you may have heard other people talk about this before, but I'm actually going to share some specific examples, which I hope can kind of paint this picture for you, and then some tangible things that you can try out that will get yourself into this space where you can really strive to reach your full potential by staying open to receive. So what do I mean by that? I want you to just imagine with me for a moment a life that is filled with opportunities and successes and creativity and even money or even happiness, better health. All of these things are able to flow into your life with a lot less effort. So that is what I'm talking about. This is not a fantasy. This is something that is within your reach. And I'm not going to tell you that it's effortless. I think that's kind of hokey. We do have to work for these things sometimes, but not as hard as you're currently working. So on today's show, I'm talking about how to make room for what you truly desire. And this information is going to truly transform your life and business. I'm going to share, like I said, some tangible things with you this week on how to do this. So if you are brand new to the podcast, I want to welcome you. My name is Janine Alley, and you are listening to Becoming the CEO of Your Life. And what I have to tell you right away is in the past, what I would do is I even turned down working with people. I even turned down working with clients because I'm like, I'm not ready for you yet. I'm too busy getting these systems in place. And what was going on was I was overcomplicating things. I just didn't feel like I was ready yet. And I wasn't, clearly, because I didn't have any space for people, or at least I didn't think I did. And so I actually turned down people because I'm like, no, I'm not currently taking clients. I am busy working behind the scenes. I'm making a pivot. And the thing is we're always making pivots. We're always working behind the scenes. We have to figure out ways to have simple systems to allow us to receive people into our world, to receive financial abundance, to receive opportunities, and at the same time, still be doing the admin things. But you don't want this piece of it to be taking over your life. So your capacity to be creative, to grow, to have new opportunities come your way, like I said, better health, increased energy, has everything to do with your capacity to receive. And this is powerful. And there are two ways that we actually block this from happening. We actually contract our energy. We're not in this space of being open and being expansive. We are contracting. So the first way that we do this is if we feel like we're doing all of the things. So this is kind of what I was just talking about. I felt like I was doing all the things in my business and I didn't have room for any clients. Right? We're not getting the results that we want to get because we're doing all the things. So if you're doing this, I want you to stop and listen, because what's happening is you're either not excited about what you're doing, which also contracts your energy, or you are headed that way. And you're headed that way on a runaway freight train currently because you feel like you have to get things done. This is not good energy. This is something that contracts your energy. If you're doing so much work to attract clients or get the business going, you end up contracting and you can't expand. The second way that we do this, and I don't want to limit this to just two things. There are, of course, other things that we do, but these are two really common ones. So the second way that we do this is either the clients that we attract or the team members that we're working with or the people that we have around us are sucking the life right out of us. I'm not talking about your family members necessarily, although kids can do this. I'm not talking specifically about them. I'm just talking about friends and people in your space. This is going to drain your energy and cause your energy to, again, withdraw. So I just want you thinking about, like, would you want to build more of this? Of course not. You don't want to attract more people like this into your world. You don't want to continue working with people like this. And so you are subconsciously blocking the flow of abundance into your life. So let me give you an example of what I mean by this with an analogy. So I I grocery shop sometimes at a store that has the doorway opening right onto a road. And I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that. There actually isn't, there's a little bit of a sidewalk there, but it actually goes right onto where the traffic can drive. And to be honest, if I had little kids, I probably wouldn't shop here because I'd be terrified that one of my kids would get away and they'd bolt out the door and, run into a car, or worse, the car would run into them, right? I mean, it would terrify me. So I probably wouldn't shop here, but the grocery store is along a strip mall, and that's just the way that the traffic flows. And so to prevent people from speeding along the road there, they have a bunch of speed bumps, which is great to slow people down, but not awesome when I'm trying to get my groceries back to my car. So I've got my grocery cart and it's loaded with groceries, and I'm trying to make my way back to my car. And it is treacherous, right? I feel like I'm running into speed bumps. And then if my cart is really full, sometimes things topple out and I've got to pick it back up. And meanwhile, cars are still coming. And then I try to scoot around to the front of the car and pull the cart over the speed bump. And sometimes I get high centered. I mean, it is not pretty, me trying to get my groceries back to the car. This is what happens to us when things don't flow, when our energy contracts. This is what the results feel like, is that way. So when you're in this space and you're increasing your capacity to receive, you're actually getting rid of all of the speed bumps. And I know what some of you do when you run into these speed bumps. You're like, okay, I'm just going to double down on this strategy that I've invested in, even if it's currently not working. I have done this before. I was actually working with a coach who was amazing with quiz funnels for a little bit of time. And I'm like, I'm going to make this work. I actually got 6,000 leads from this funnel. So the funnel was working, but I wasn't getting any sales. So it wasn't working for that, which is, why we're in business. Is we're in business in order to create that value exchange. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But the other thing that we do besides doubling down on a strategy is we're bouncing all over the place. We're like, okay, well, that's not working, so let me try something else. And I find myself in this space when I'm on my Instagram. Instagram got me pegged as an entrepreneur. And so I see a lot of like funnel building kind of ads on my Instagram feed. And so I get really curious about some of these, like, oh, maybe I should try that. Oh, maybe I should try that, or I should try that. And we end up hustling and tired, and it's not a fun experience. So let me just tell you this. If you are doing these things, you actually don't have an external strategy problem. Not being open to receive is an internal problem. And I'm sure that's obvious to you now that I say this, but it's not obvious to us sometimes when we're in the thick of it and we're actually doing all the things, or we're trying to double down on a strategy, right? Because if it was an external problem, it would have been fixed by now. Right. So I want you to step away from this, and I want you to focus today on increasing your capacity to receive and how things are going to shift then externally. So the first thing that I want to say is I'm going to give you some strategies today to really simplify this process. And this is what we need to be unwavering in, is simplifying things so that it feels easy or easier, but it definitely feels simple. Okay, sometimes it's not easy, even if it is simple, but we really want to work on having things be simple. So I'm going to give you an example. Just this last week, actually, I started working with someone brand new who is taking a lot of things off of my plate. And for me, this feels amazing. I mean, the day that I offloaded this stuff, my shoulders felt lighter. I mean, I was walking around like, I've got all this time. I mean, hopefully this isn't too much information. I had one of my really, really good friends had twins a couple years ago. And this is kind of a phenomenon, actually, a crazy birth phenomenon. So she had twins. One of the twins that was born first, actually, was a boy. He weighed over 9 pounds, 9 pounds as a twin. Well, his twin sister was only like 5 pounds. And it took her a long time to be delivered, because as soon as Davy got out of the way, Sadie's like, I got all this room. She's swimming around. She's like totally expansive. That's how I felt last week, is I'm like, I've got all of this time. And I had been working on a webinar script for a while, and I felt like the content just wasn't flowing. I felt I was kind of stuck on one point and it wasn't coming together the way that I was envisioning it and I was hoping for, And it was amazing because as soon as I offloaded this, it was like, boom, all of this creative energy came to me, and I created it quickly, and I felt really good about it afterwards. I'm like, this is it. I felt like I had nailed it to this point. I know there's going to be some testing from here on out, but I do feel really, really good about the information that came through. So in hindsight, I've been able to look back and realize that in certain times or periods in my life where I wasn't getting results that I wanted, I wasn't making sales, for example, I was too busy complicating things and making things much harder. And so things couldn't come to me because I was in that space of hustle and just trying to like force things to work. And that kind of aggravates this process a little bit. So again, learning how to be open in this space is actually something that we can do. We can actually learn how and change the things that we're doing, change the blocks that we have in a fairly quick, fast, easy period of time. So I'm going to share with you some things today that you can do in order to increase your capacity to receive. So the first thing is you want to believe in possibilities. And we're not just talking like one or two. We're talking about an infinite amount of possibilities, and trust that there is also an infinite amount of opportunities and resources and creativity and energy available to you. And this is more of a mindset than anything else, right? One of the ways that we contract our energy is when we think there is just one way to do something, or even just two or three ways to do something. And we hang on to this original idea with all of our might. And we do this for many reasons, but the ultimate energy is, it's gotta be done this way. And this, for me, really has contracted my energy in the past because I'm not staying open to how other things could be, like maybe even an easier way of doing something, right? And I have learned how to let go of the control and some of these rigid expectations that I put on myself and how I felt like things should happen. I've learned how to trust the process and have faith in more of this natural flow of life, and trust that things are going to unfold in the way that they should for me, if I just kind of step out of the way sometimes. So be in this space of believing in infinite possibilities and opportunities. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is you want to believe in your value. You have to understand and believe that you are worthy of receiving good things, right? So charging money, for example, for your services represents an exchange of value. You value what it is that you do by charging for it, and people show you that they value what you do by paying for it, right? It creates this flow of value from one person to the next, and that is the way that businesses run. So I know I was actually just talking to someone just this last week. She was newer to coaching, newer to opening her business and working with people. And at first, she didn't have the confidence to really charge for what she was doing because it was in a realm of therapy that she felt like was a little bit woo, and she wasn't 100% sure if she could do this for someone else. She had this work done for her, but she wasn't sure if she could do it for somebody else. And so she was just like, hey, do you mind if I try this on you? Well, of course, it turns out she was really amazing at what she did. She was highly successful, but now she's kind of in this space of like, well, I'm still having people reach out to me, and I've transitioned into charging other people. Do I still give friends and family for free? I'm like, no, of course you don't. You've got to charge. You need to charge. I don't change my prices for anybody. Some of my clients are friends that I've had for years and years and years, and I charge them exactly what I would for anyone else, because you are ultimately doing them a disservice. They end up not valuing what it is that you're doing if you don't charge them. So you want to understand your value. You have to believe in your value in order for that to take place. Okay, because if you don't, you're going to contract. Okay. The third piece, this is something that I haven't talked about for a long time on the podcast, but this is something I definitely believe in, and it's creating space for what you desire. And this can be on your calendar, of course, like making room for clients to show up and book appointments with you, of course, but it can also be in your physical space, like in your house, Or for me in my office, I have a standing desk that doesn't have any drawers underneath it. And I love it because I'm not creating clutter. I'm not collecting things. And so I have a very minimalist approach to this because I want the energy to flow through freely. I don't want things, stagnant in here. So I like to keep my space really open to create space for that. And on my calendar, I will say, I have days that I like to think of as input days, and I have days that I like to think of as output days. And I try to balance these together. So for example, I coach on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and this is more of a new development. I used to coach 5 days a week, and then I'm like, okay, this isn't working. And then I used to coach 3 days a week or 2.5 days a week for a little bit. Now I just coach 2 days a week because coaching clients is so fun for me, but there's a lot of energy output on those days. And so on the days that I'm coaching, in between clients, I actually have my own learning, my own input scheduled to kind of balance that output, but I don't have big output activities on the same day. So for example, I'm not creating course content on the same day that I'm coaching clients, or that I'm not creating podcast content on the same day that I'm coaching clients. That is just too big of an output for me. So I really try to keep my calendar pretty streamlined in that way, thinking about, okay, what's an input, what's an output activity? How can I combine this so I'm not doing big output activities on the same day? All right, the last piece that I want to say here is you really want to embrace vulnerability and self-trust in this process, because for me to cut down to just 2 days of coaching clients a week, I had to kind of trust myself in order to do that. And one of the ways that I have made this work is I have a group coaching program that if people aren't interested in working with me one-on-one, I can scoop them all up and coach them and help them at the same time. And that helps to also balance my energy out. And to test these kinds of things in business takes time, of course, for things to like, okay, how do I want to actually do this? Is this really in alignment with me? But also having that self-trust piece that you can pivot if it doesn't work out. And along with this, of course, is going to be slowing down, connecting to yourself. This is why this is one of the pillars of my program. In order to become the CEO of your life, you have to understand how to handle these vulnerabilities, how to deal with times where you do feel uncomfortable or kind of exposed or kind of out there, or as you're testing things out or trying new things, and you're in that space of uncertainty with maybe finances or outcomes, or, I mean, there are so many things that are uncertain in this process. And so you really have to kind of slow yourself down to be able to think things through and make those executive kinds of decisions from a place of your highest thinking. So one of the things that was challenging for me, a thought that I was thinking, and this is something that I feel like is pretty common for people, is I would tell myself, okay, in a year from now, this is the success that I'm going to see. And I would plan out like 6 months or 12 months in the future. Well, it was interesting because for a while, that was always the distance. I never was closing the gap between those two things. So you might notice for yourself, you're always pushing these things out. And sometimes it's easier to work on the little admin things than it is to step out and make offers and get rejected and all those things that need to happen. So you want to spend some time exploring a thought like this or another limiting belief, asking yourself questions like, why does this feel important to me? Or what happens if I don't believe this thought? Or what's scary about not believing this thought? Or do you actually believe this thought? I mean, these are questions that are going to help you to connect to yourself, to answer these things, and to be able to step out and expand and be able to receive the things that you are planning on, but not keeping it in the future. You want to bring that into the present moment. All right, my friends, this is what I have for you today on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I am eager to hear how this episode landed for you. If you liked this episode, I want to encourage you to share the podcast, rate and review this episode. It really goes a long way to helping other people come and find the content. And the last thing that I want to say here is I am currently doing 15-minute Unwavering women assessments. This is something that I've been doing for a little while. They're really fun. If you are interested in finding out ways that you are currently wavering in your business and in your processes, go ahead and book this assessment to find out how you can step into that unwavering energy to get the things done that you would like to and to have the results that you want in your life. All right, my friends, have a beautiful rest of your week. We will talk to you guys soon. We'll see you. Bye.